Loro Languaged Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. This is your cozy corner for natural English practice and real-life conversations. I'm Jayden.
And I'm Aria. We are so happy to have you here with us today.
Now, before we jump into today's topic, we have one tiny favor to ask. If you enjoy listening to us, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps other English learners find us.
Exactly. And we would also love it if you left a comment down below. It can be super simple. Just tell us where you're listening from or share your thoughts on today's topic.
And you know what? Typing a comment is actually a great way to practice your English without even realizing it. Your brain is working, choosing vocabulary, putting words in order. It is real practice.
That is so true. So please, don't be nervous about making mistakes. Even just one short sentence is totally fine. We genuinely love reading your thoughts.
All right, are you ready? Let's get right into today's topic.
I want to start today with a scene that I think many English learners know very well. You are standing in line at a coffee shop. You already know what you want to order. You practiced it in your head 3 times before you walked in.
That sounds very familiar.
You tell yourself, okay, this is easy. Just say a medium latte, please. That is all. 5 words. Nothing scary.
But somehow, when you get to the counter, those 5 words suddenly become a final exam.
Exactly. The person behind the counter looks at you and says, "Hi, what can I get for you today?" And suddenly your mouth becomes dry, your brain freezes, and your confidence completely disappears.
And the worst part is when there's a line behind you.
Yes, that makes everything 10 times worse. You can feel the people behind you waiting. Nobody is actually saying anything, but in your mind, they are all judging you.
They are just waiting for coffee. But in your head, they are a panel of English judges.
Exactly. And then instead of calmly ordering the drink you wanted, you panic. Maybe you speak too quietly. Maybe you forget the word latte. Maybe you point at the menu like a lost tourist.
Or you say the wrong size and accept it because you're too scared to correct yourself.
Yes, you wanted medium, but somehow you walk out with a small black coffee and you just tell yourself, well, I guess this is my life now.
That is painfully real.
And that is what we are talking about today. How to speak English without fear.
I love this topic because the fear is real. It is not just about vocabulary. It is not just about grammar. Sometimes you know the words, but fear blocks them.
Exactly. A lot of learners think their problem is English level. But sometimes the real problem is fear. Fear of mistakes. Fear of pronunciation. Fear of being judged. Fear of making people wait. Fear of sounding stupid.
And fear can make even simple English feel impossible.
Yes. So today we are not just going to say be confident. Because honestly, that advice is not helpful.
Right. If someone is scared and you just say do not be scared, that changes absolutely nothing.
Exactly. We need to talk about where the fear comes from, what it feels like in real situations, and how to slowly make speaking English feel safer.
Safer. That is a good word.
Because confidence does not appear magically. Confidence grows when your brain learns, okay, I can survive this.
That is important. Speaking English without fear does not mean you never feel nervous.
Yes, it means fear is no longer controlling your mouth.
That is a powerful way to say it.
Let me tell you about one of my first embarrassing English moments. I still remember it clearly.
Oh, I love embarrassing English stories. They are painful, but helpful.
This happened at a grocery store. I wanted to ask where something was. It was a simple item, but I could not remember the exact English word. I walked around the store for almost 10 minutes pretending to browse, but actually I was just trying to avoid asking someone.
Pretending to browse is such a classic move.
Yes. I picked up random products and looked at the labels like I was deeply interested in them. But inside, I was just arguing with myself. Should I ask? No. Maybe I can find it myself. But I cannot find it. Okay. Ask someone. No. What if I say it wrong?
That inner conversation can be so exhausting.
Finally, I saw an employee. He looked friendly, so I walked over and tried to ask. But the moment he looked at me, I panicked. I forgot half the sentence. I said something like, "Excuse me, where is the thing for cleaning? The white powder? For clothes? Maybe."
Honestly, that is understandable.
It was understandable, but I felt terrible. My face got hot. I thought he was going to laugh at me.
Did he?
No, that is the interesting part. He did not laugh at all. He just said, "Oh, laundry detergent. Aisle 6.
So the situation was fine.
Completely fine, but my body reacted like I had survived a dangerous event. I walked to aisle 6, feeling embarrassed, relieved, and a little proud at the same time.
That mix of feelings is very real. Embarrassed because it was not perfect, relieved because it worked, and proud because you actually did it.
Exactly. And later I realized something. My sentence was messy, but communication happened. He understood me. I got what I needed. Nothing terrible happened.
That is such an important lesson. The goal of speaking is not perfection. The goal is communication.
Yes. But our fear tricks us into thinking that every sentence must be perfect before we open our mouth.
Which is impossible. Even native speakers do not speak perfectly.
Exactly. Native speakers pause, restart sentences, forget words, use the wrong word, correct themselves, and say weird things all the time.
I do that every day.
Same, but English learners often hold themselves to a much higher standard than native speakers.
That is a big problem. They think one grammar mistake means failure.
Yes, but in real life, most people are not listening for your grammar mistakes. They are listening for your meaning.
Unless they are your English teacher.
True, but at a coffee shop, a grocery store, a workplace, or a party, people are usually just trying to understand the message.
So the first step is changing the goal.
Exactly. Instead of asking, "Did I say it perfectly?" ask, "Did they understand me?"
That lowers the pressure.
It does. And lowering pressure is important because fear grows under pressure.
Let us talk about why speaking feels scarier than reading or listening.
Good point.
A lot of learners can understand videos, read articles, maybe even write emails, but speaking feels like a completely different monster.
Because speaking happens in real time.
Exactly. When you write, you can pause, you can delete, you can check a word, you can rewrite the sentence.
But when you speak, the other person is right there, waiting.
And you feel exposed.
Yes, speaking is public. Even if it is only one person, it feels like your language ability is standing in the middle of the room with a spotlight on it.
That is why people avoid speaking. Avoidance feels safe in the short term.
But it makes fear stronger in the long term.
Exactly. If you avoid speaking English every time you feel nervous, your brain learns that speaking English is dangerous.
That is such an important point. Every time you avoid it, the fear becomes more believable.
But every time you speak and survive, even badly, your brain gets new evidence.
Evidence that says, "I can do this."
Yes, maybe not perfectly, but I can survive it.
That is how confidence is built.
Slowly, not instantly.
Exactly. I think a lot of learners want a magic confidence switch. They want to wake up one day and suddenly speak English freely with no fear.
But confidence is more like a muscle.
Yes, you build it through small reps.
Small speaking reps.
Exactly. Not huge, scary speeches, small moments. Asking where something is, ordering coffee, saying one sentence in a meeting, making one phone call, asking one follow-up question.
That sounds manageable.
And that is the key. If the challenge is too big, your fear wins. If the challenge is small enough, you can practice.
So instead of saying, tomorrow I will speak English fluently with everyone, say, tomorrow I will ask one person one simple question.
Exactly. That is much more realistic.
Let us create a very practical scene. Someone is working in a store. A customer walks in and asks a question. The learner understands most of it, but not everything.
Very common.
The customer says something quickly, maybe, do you know if this comes in a smaller size? Or is this the only one you have in stock?
And the learner catches maybe 50%.
Their fear says, oh no, I did not understand everything. I'm going to look stupid.
So they freeze.
What should they do?
First, they should remember that asking for repetition is normal.
Very normal.
They can say, sorry, could you say that again?
Simple and natural.
Or, sorry, did you mean this size or another size?
That one is great because you're checking the meaning.
Yes. You do not have to pretend you understood everything. In fact, pretending is often more dangerous.
Because then you may answer the wrong question.
Exactly. And then the situation becomes more confusing.
So fear makes people pretend, but confidence allows people to clarify.
That is a beautiful point. Confidence is not always speaking fast. Sometimes confidence is saying, can you repeat that?
I wish more learners knew that.
Me too, because many people think asking again means their English is bad.
But native speakers ask again all the time.
All the time. People speak too fast. They mumble. There's background noise. The phone connection is bad. Someone has an accent you're not used to. There are many reasons you might not understand.
So not understanding once does not mean you failed.
Exactly. It means you're in a normal conversation.
Let us talk about pronunciation fear.
Oh, this is huge.
Many learners are afraid to speak because they think their accent is bad.
Yes. And I really want to say this clearly. Having an accent is not the same as speaking badly.
Everyone has an accent.
Exactly. The goal is not to erase your accent. The goal is to be understandable.
That is a much healthier goal.
Yes, if people can understand you, your accent is not a problem. It is part of your voice.
But sometimes people do not understand one word, and the learner feels embarrassed.
That happens. But again, it is not the end of the world. You can repeat the word more slowly. You can use another word. You can describe it.
Like your laundry detergent story?
Exactly. I forgot the word, but I described it. The thing for cleaning clothes, white powder, it worked.
Description is a powerful skill.
Very powerful. If you do not know the exact word, describe the function, the shape, the color, the situation.
For example, if you forget the word receipt, you can say the paper after I pay.
Exactly. If you forget umbrella, you can say the thing you use when it rains.
If you forget screwdriver, you can say the tool for screws.
Yes. This is real communication. You do not need to stop just because one word is missing.
That is another fear trap. Learners think if they forget one word, the sentence is dead.
But it is not dead. You can walk around the missing word.
Walk around the missing word. I like that.
It is like if the road is blocked, you take a side street.
That is a good image.
And the more you practice describing things, the less afraid you become.
Because you know you have a backup plan.
Exactly. Fear gets smaller when you have options.
Let us talk about another big fear, being judged.
This is probably the deepest one.
The fear that people will think you are stupid.
Yes, and I understand it. Language is connected to identity. When you speak in your native language, you can sound smart, funny, warm, sarcastic, professional. You can be yourself.
But in a second language, you may feel like a smaller version of yourself.
Exactly. Maybe your thoughts are complex, but your English comes out simple. So you feel embarrassed. You think, this is not who I really am.
That can be very painful.
It is. And I think we need to respect that feeling. Speaking a new language is not just a skill challenge. It is an emotional challenge.
Because you are allowing people to see you in an unfinished state.
Yes, that is vulnerable.
So how do we handle that?
First, remember that speaking imperfect English does not mean you are less intelligent. It only means you're doing a difficult thing.
That is important.
Second, choose safer environments for practice at the beginning.
What do you mean by safer environments?
People who are patient, situations with low pressure, maybe a friendly coworker, a language partner, a small group, or even a regular place where people know you.
So you do not start with the hardest situation.
Exactly. Do not start by giving a big presentation. If you are terrified of ordering coffee, start with one sentence in a low-pressure place.
That makes sense?
Third, prepare common phrases before the situation.
Preparation reduces fear.
Yes. For example, before going to a store, prepare 3 phrases. I'm looking for this. Do you have it in another size? Could you help me check?
That is practical.
Before a phone call, prepare your first sentence. Hi, I am calling about my order. Or hi, I have a question about delivery.
The first sentence is often the hardest.
Yes. Once you start, it becomes easier.
That is true. Fear is usually strongest before speaking.
Exactly. The anticipation is often worse than the conversation itself.
Like standing outside a swimming pool. The water looks freezing, but once you jump in, your body adjusts.
Perfect example. Speaking English is often the same. The first sentence feels scary. But after that, you start moving.
Let us create another scene. A workplace meeting?
Okay,
You are sitting in a meeting. People are discussing a project. You have an idea, but you're not sure if your English is good enough. So you stay quiet.
very common.
After the meeting, someone else says the same idea. Everyone likes it. And you think, I should have said that.
That feeling hurts.
It does, because you did have something valuable to say, but fear kept it inside.
This happens a lot, and the solution is not to force yourself to give a long speech. Start small.
How small?
One sentence. For example, I have one small idea. Or maybe we can try a different approach. Or I agree with that. And I want to add one thing.
Those are good entry phrases.
Yes. Entry phrases are like doors into the conversation.
That is useful.
Many learners are not afraid of the whole idea. They are afraid of how to enter.
Once they enter, they can explain.
Exactly. So memorize a few entry phrases. I have a question. Can I add something? I'm not sure, but maybe we could. That gives you a safe way to start.
I'm not sure, but maybe we could. It sounds humble and useful.
Yes, it reduces pressure because you're not saying, I have the perfect answer. You're just offering an idea.
That feels less scary.
And if your sentence is not perfect, that is okay. The goal is participation.
Again, participation over perfection.
Exactly.
Let us talk about the fear of making mistakes.
I think mistakes are actually how speaking becomes real.
What do you mean?
When you only study privately, English stays clean and controlled. But when you speak, English becomes messy. You make mistakes, you correct yourself, you laugh, you try again. That messiness is where fluency grows.
That is a nice way to look at it.
I used to think mistakes were signs that I was not ready. Now I think mistakes are signs that I'm practicing in the real world.
That is a big mindset shift.
Yes. If you wait until you can speak perfectly before you speak, you will wait forever.
Because speaking is what makes you better at speaking.
Exactly. You cannot become comfortable speaking by only thinking about speaking.
That sounds obvious, but it is easy to forget.
Very easy. We want to study more, watch more videos, learn more grammar, collect more vocabulary. Those things help. But at some point, you have to open your mouth,
Even if it feels uncomfortable.
especially if it feels uncomfortable.
Let us be honest, though. Some people are not patient. Some people do judge accents or mistakes.
That is true. And I do not want to pretend everyone is kind. Some people are rude. Some people interrupt. Some people act impatient.
So what should learners do when that happens?
First, do not build your whole identity around one rude person's reaction.
That is important.
If someone is impatient with your English, that says something about their patience, not your worth.
Yes,
Second, have a calm recovery phrase. For example, let me say that again. Or sorry, I mean, or let me explain it another way.
those are useful.
Recovery phrases are powerful because they help you stay in the conversation after a mistake.
Without panicking.
Exactly. A mistake is not a crash. It is just a turn.
I like that. A mistake is not a crash. It is just a turn.
You can correct direction and keep going.
Let us give an example.
Okay, suppose you say, yesterday I go to the store. Then you notice the mistake. You can simply say, sorry, I went to the store yesterday.
No drama.
Exactly. No need to apologize for your existence. Just correct and continue.
Native speakers do that too. They start a sentence, change it, and keep going.
All the time.
So learners should not treat every correction like a disaster.
Exactly. To treat it like normal conversation maintenance.
Conversation maintenance. That sounds technical, but true.
It is like adjusting your steering wheel while driving. You do not stop the car every time you move the wheel.
Great image.
Let us talk about another useful idea. Build a speaking comfort zone, then slowly stretch it.
What does that look like?
Level 1 could be speaking alone. Describe what you're doing out loud. I'm making coffee. I am checking my phone. I need to leave in 10 minutes.
That feels safe because no one is listening.
Exactly. Level 2 could be recording your voice. Not for posting, just for yourself.
Many people hate hearing their own voice.
I know, but it helps. You get used to hearing yourself speak English. That reduces embarrassment.
What is level 3?
Short, real interactions. Ordering food. Asking for a bag. Asking where something is.
Level 4?
Longer conversations with safe people.
And level 5?
Higher pressure situations like meetings, phone calls, interviews, presentations.
So you do not jump straight to level 5.
Exactly. That is why many people feel overwhelmed. They avoid speaking for months. Then suddenly they expect themselves to perform perfectly in a job interview.
That is too much pressure.
Yes, you need smaller steps before that.
This reminds me of going to the gym. You do not start with the heaviest weight.
Exactly. You build strength.
Speaking strength.
Yes. And every small conversation counts,
Even a tiny one?
especially tiny ones. They teach your brain that English is not an emergency.
That is a great line. English is not an emergency.
Because for many learners, their nervous system treats English speaking like danger.
Heart racing. Sweating. Blank mind.
Yes. So you have to give your nervous system repeated safe experiences.
That is deeper than just language learning.
It is. Language learning is also emotional training.
Let us talk about what to do after a bad speaking moment.
Very important.
Because sometimes you speak English, it goes badly, and then you replay it in your head for 3 days.
Oh yes, the mental replay. You are brushing your teeth and suddenly remember one sentence you said wrong, and you feel embarrassed all over again.
That is so real.
The problem is that people often use those memories to punish themselves.
They think, I sounded terrible. I should never speak again.
Exactly. But we need to turn those moments into data, not punishment.
Data, not punishment. Explain that.
After a conversation, instead of asking, why am I so bad? Ask, what can I learn from this? Maybe you forgot a word. Write it down. Maybe you needed a phrase like, could you repeat that? Practice it. Maybe you got nervous on the phone. Prepare a phone script next time.
So the mistake becomes useful.
Yes, every awkward moment can become a study note.
That feels much healthier.
And also, remember what worked. People only focus on what went wrong.
True.
Maybe you made 2 mistakes, but you also successfully asked a question, understood the answer, and solved your problem. That matters.
So after speaking, write down one thing to improve and one thing that went well.
Exactly. That keeps your brain balanced.
I like that.
Fear grows when you only collect evidence against yourself.
Confidence grows when you collect evidence that you are improving.
Yes.
Let us give listeners a few practical phrases for fear moments.
Good idea.
When you do not understand, say, sorry, could you say that again?
Or could you say that a little slower?
When you forget a word, say, I forgot the word, but it is the thing you use for.
Or it is on the tip of my tongue.
When you need time, say, let me think for a second.
Or that is a good question. Give me a moment.
When you make a mistake, say, sorry,
Or let me say that again.
when you are nervous but still want to speak, say, I am still learning English, so I may need a second.
That one can be very helpful. It makes the situation more human.
And most people will become more patient.
Yes. Not everyone, but many people.
And if someone is not patient,
Then still be proud of yourself for trying.
that is important.
You cannot control everyone's reaction. You can control whether you keep practicing.
Let us talk about the mindset of Brave English.
Brave English? I like that.
Brave English is not perfect English.
No. Brave English is English that shows up.
Even with mistakes,
Even with pauses,
even with an accent,
even with simple words.
even when your voice shakes a little.
Yes, that is real courage.
I think many people underestimate themselves. If they are not fluent, they think they are failing.
But if you're speaking a second language at all, you're already doing something brave.
That is true.
Think about it. You are taking thoughts from your mind, passing them through a language that is not your first language, and sending them into the world. That is not easy.
It is actually impressive.
It is. So give yourself credit.
That does not mean stop improving.
Of course not. Keep improving. Learn vocabulary. Practice pronunciation. Study grammar. But do it with respect for yourself, not shame.
That is a big difference.
Shame makes you hide. Respect helps you grow.
Beautiful.
So if someone listening today is afraid to speak English, I want them to start very small.
What should they do today?
Today, choose one small speaking action. Say one sentence to someone. Ask one question. Record yourself for 1 minute. Read a paragraph out loud. Repeat one useful phrase until it feels normal.
One small action.
Yes. And tomorrow, do another one.
That is how fear gets smaller.
Exactly. Not through thinking, through experience.
Let us bring it back to the coffee shop scene from the beginning.
Yes, you are standing in line. Your heart is beating a little faster. You know what you want, but you're nervous.
This time, you do not need to be perfect.
You just need to communicate.
You walk to the counter.
The barista asks, "What can I get for you?"
You take one breath.
And you say, "Can I get a medium latte, please?"
Maybe your pronunciation is not perfect.
Maybe your voice is a little quiet,
Maybe you need to repeat the size.
but it is okay.
You did it.
And your brain learns, "I survived."
Next time, it will be a little easier.
And the time after that, easier again.
That is how confidence is built.
One small, brave sentence at a time.
So speaking English without fear does not mean you never feel afraid.
It means you speak anyway, gently, slowly, and imperfectly,
It means you stop waiting for perfect confidence.
and start building real confidence through action.
That is a strong message.
I think so, and I hope everyone listening remembers this. Your English does not have to be perfect to be useful.
Your voice does not have to be perfect to be worth hearing.
And your fear does not have to disappear before you begin.
You can begin with fear.
You can speak with fear.
And little by little, fear will stop being the boss.
Exactly.
So here is our challenge for this week. Choose one English situation you usually avoid.
Maybe ordering something,
Maybe asking a question.
maybe making a short phone call.
Maybe speaking up once in a meeting.
Keep it small, keep it realistic.
But do it.
And after you do it, do not attack yourself.
Ask what went well.
Ask what you can improve.
Then try again.
That is how you become a fearless English speaker.
Or maybe not fearless.
True, maybe brave is better than fearless.
I like that more.
Me too, because fear may still show up.
But bravery says, I can speak anyway.
Exactly. And that is enough for today.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's conversation.
We really hope you enjoyed it. And remember, no matter what you're struggling with right now, whether it is saving money, learning English, or just getting through the week, take it one step at a time. Be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. Learning a language is a journey, and you are doing great just by being here and listening.
If you found this episode helpful, or even just a little bit funny, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It is the best way to support what we do.
And please don't forget to leave a comment down below. Tell us what you thought about today's topic, or just say hi. We read every single comment, and we love hearing from you.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and trust the process.
We will catch you in the next episode. Take care, everyone. Bye.